My name is Franky Fernandes, and I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. My guest at the other end is from Armchair Going. He needs no introduction. For a very short moment, I'll call him as Remo Fernandes to introduce to you, but I would always call him as a rock star. Please welcome rock star Padma Shri Remo Fernandes.
Hi, Frankie. Very nice to speak to you, big man. I know you always call me rock star, and I always call you big man. I guess we'll carry
I'm no
that
big
on.
man, Remo. Given your feat that you've just accomplished,
But
over 150,000 words in your autobiography. Is there still something more that you would give your readers?
well, I could have gone on. Actually, I could have made it longer, but I tried to keep it as short as I could without omitting anything of importance. Yeah.
Well, let's begin up with.
And I must say that was very, very nice of HarperCollins, especially of Udayan Mitra, my editor and publisher in HarperCollins, who actually encouraged me to write more. You know, who kept saying, you know, something, this is very personal. This is a beautiful personal story, but you have not written much about your hit songs. And I'm sure people would like to know how, you know, this one came about and that one came about, Jalwa and Pyar To Ho Nahi Tha. So he's the one who actually encouraged and pushed me to make it longer and more elaborate. And when the time for editing came, I was expecting a merciless slashing of different passages, but there was none, absolutely none. And I'm very grateful to HarperCollins for that.
At the beginning, I have to thank you, Remo. I have to thank you for two things. One, I've been always fascinated with reading the hard copy books, but it was at your instance that I started reading it on the Kindle. And the second thing was, I've been always an eco-friendly person, and that gives me another reason to be more eco-friendly, reading it on Kindle. And hats off to you. Thank you for introducing me to the
Not
Kindle.
at all. Thank you too, because you know, I was introduced to it out of sheer necessity. When I shifted to Porto, I didn't want to take all my books from here. There were too many, and it would be too heavy. And then I thought, why not a Kindle? You know, because I, like you, used to love also the feel and smell of paper and hardcovers and stuff. And then I realized how eco-friendly they were, because in one little Kindle you can store up to 2,000 books. Just imagine how many trees that saves, and you can travel with all those 2,000 books with you anywhere you go. That's amazing, you know. Yeah.
Exactly.
And a lot of other facilities also. You don't need a night lamp to read if you have a backlit Kindle, and you can go through several books at the same time. It remembers the page you were on.
Exactly.
Anyway, I'm not here to sell Kindles, so let's go ahead.
Definitely not. But listen, starting at the age of 4 till what you've achieved so far, Remo, okay, you penned it up so bloody well, right from your first house in Panjim, and then the one at Miramar, and of course the photographs that you've managed to put across. Now, I'm pretty sure these are the photographs which have been like used for the first time. Okay. Now, at any point of time, did you have any inclination that one day these photographs would be something featuring on your autobiography?
In my autobiography, I didn't think of it in terms of autobiography, but I did think that, yes, I did think that there were precious photographs, of course. And thanks to my mother, they're all preserved and kept until today in albums, you know, fixed in albums. Otherwise, they would have been lost. And I did think that one day they might be published somewhere. I didn't really think of an autobiography, but could be in an album, you know, in a music album. If I wanted to, re-record songs from my youth, for example, maybe on one of the pages of the LP cover. At that time, we had LPs, and And so we had lots of space for photographs, for information, for writing. And nowadays with the digital releases, you get to write nothing except for the title of the song and the name of the artist, and that's a very sad loss. But yeah, I never thought of an autobiography as such in those terms, but I did think that one day they might, at least some of them might come in handy. But I never expected them, so many of them, to come in handy and exactly what I needed at the right for the right passage in the book. Thank you, Mother.
Now, I'm coming back to your mom and your dad. Your dad, in fact, was the one who was instrumental in getting that first harmonica for you. If you look back to what Remo is today for India and for his fans, I'm pretty sure you may have had that inclination at the back of your mind today. It's my dad, my papa, who's been responsible for what I'm today, isn't it?
Absolutely, he was the key to music. Not the key to music, but he's the one who saw music in me and who encouraged it like crazy. It's not like he instilled music in me, although yes, he did. Genetically, it came from him and not from my mother, and genetically speaking. So in that way also, he's the one who instilled music in me. And after that, when he saw the musical inclination that I had, he's the one responsible for encouraging and nurturing and making it bloom, in every way possible. Absolutely. Always credit him.
Exactly. Now, somewhere down reading your book, I
Yeah.
came across you being into soccer and you were a goalkeeper. Okay. You and go on, as we are passionate about our soccer. Uh, do you still sort of miss those days, and you wonder, oh, what if Remo was a soccer star? Would he have been the
No,
same?
I never had dreams to become a soccer star. No, 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 or a soccer or a professional even soccer player. I just enjoyed playing at that time, just as I enjoyed playing Cowboys and Indians, and I enjoyed playing marbles, and I enjoyed playing corridor ball, and I enjoyed playing so many things. That's all. I never thought of taking it up as a career. But
Right.
at around that time, when I was still in school and playing football and all these other games with my friends, that's the time when my father gifted me my first guitar, and I saw that I found myself, uh, spending time with my guitar in the house rather than going out and playing. Already at that time, my preferences had started making themselves clear. I was sitting at home and discovering my guitar rather than playing games every day with my friends. So it
I
started.
know. I know. I don't want to get you into the nitty-gritties of your autobiography, because I seriously would want readers to pick up a copy and read it for themselves. Okay. I've done it, and I've been thoroughly enjoying. And given an opportunity, I would want to go again and read it. Okay.
Wow.
Just
Great to hear, Frankie. Great to hear. Thank you.
like it's Remo. I'm not trying to flatter you, but I'm also
I know.
trying to tell you what I'm trying to tell you is that this is one autobiography which keeps you sort of up and down. It gives you a glimpse of what Remo was when he was a young kid, okay, growing up in that house in Panjim, then often moving to Sholem, and then, of course, your house in Miramar. And there have been so many people that have come across in that book. Now, when you tell, or rather, eh, what I mean to say is, uh, musicians like Bashir Khan,
Rashid,
Lala, Bashir Sheikh, sorry, Bashir
no
Sheikh,
problem.
and few others, you've included them of how much they have been to you. How have they taken it up?
Well, actually, I do know that from the three other savages, uh, Ralph wrote and said that he got the book. After that, I didn't hear from him, so I guess he must be still reading it. And Prabhakar, the organist, Prabhakar
Yeah.
Munku, he not only read it, but he actually wrote a review of my book for a newspaper. I think it was the Hindu economical times or financial times or something like that. And I'm afraid that in that review, I saw that he didn't, I felt that he didn't really read the book in toto, because there are at least 2 or 3 factual mistakes that he has made in the books, and there are another 2 or 3 understanding mistakes. He understood things wrongly. But it's a lovely review in the sense that he really strongly, very strongly advises the book to the readers and stuff like that. It's a lovely interview. It's a lovely review. No, from Bashir, I didn't hear at all, so I don't know whether he has read
Okay.
or the book.
Okay. Now, I might be going a bit fast forward as far as the book is concerned. I'm taking you back to your first visit to Paris. Okay.
Yeah.
And in your book, you do make a mention about how important stars have been to you. Okay. And there was one instance you mentioned about going to this place where you met up with an old friend of yours who you had met either in Goa or in Bombay.
In
Okay.
Goa.
And yes.
First time in
Okay.
Goa.
First time in Goa, and then it was you were connected with him once again in Paris, if I'm right. Okay, that's
Yeah.
just one instance, but there have been several other instances over there where you have shown us how important the stars have been playing a role in your life.
Oh, the stars, you mean the actual stars in the
Yes,
sky?
yes,
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't really mean that I believe in astrology or something, or that I mean, for example, astrology is something, okay, that I don't know about. I don't know whether it really
but
works or it does not work. So I just imagined it that way. I met someone in Goa, and I met Eric and Hubert on the
yeah,
same night 4 years earlier. And then 4 years later, I meet that person from Goa through a wrong number on the phone. And 1 week later, I bump into Eric and Hubert, into Eric on the street, without having his address or telephone number. Now, what a either you can call, like I said, either you can call it a coincidence if you want, or you can call it, synchronicity, which I prefer to call it, and the stars, or you can look at it as the stars, our stars, that person in Goa and Eric's and mine, our stars crossing in the sky. As an artist, I guess I find this last explanation more uh, romantic, or more figurative. So I prefer to think that way.
all
But
right.
I'm not saying
Now,
that I believe in stars or I don't believe in stars. I don't know enough about stars in order to.
the bottom line was it was sheer coincidence, one would call it.
Yeah, a lot of people call these things coincidence, and
Yeah.
we brush it off as coincidences. That's what I read in this book called Synchronicity. It says all of us, or most of us, have come across this experience where suddenly, after 10 years, you think of an old friend. You wake up thinking about an old friend, or you dream about an old friend. And that morning, he calls you up.
Yeah.
That very morning, after 10 years, and we brush it off as a coincidence. What a coincidence! I thought of you just last night, and now you're calling me. But he claims that there is something stronger than coincidence at work here. It's the power of the minds and of the things. Because if you go to see, it has happened to all of us. I'm sure it has happened to you too.
Exactly.
And the most simple example of synchronicity is this. Thinking about someone or something after a long time, and then that thing or that person coming across your life on the very next day, or just a few hours later. These things happen.
Well, I truly believe in what you say. Also, you went to the West. Like many of us, if we had at your age, we had to go, we would have thought about, going there, working, making some money. But no, you went for an entirely different purpose. You went solely to explore the West.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that gave you an opportunity, okay, to understand the West in a much better way? What you had already heard back in Goa was something different, but you going there and exploring it Your first-hand impression.
Of course, it gave me a totally different outlook, different opportunity, because and it's not that I didn't go there to earn money because I had a big potluck of money that I went with. No, I just wanted to earn enough money to live, to survive, to live, to travel. That was my whole intention. I used to read these books, and again, I used to find it a very romantic idea, of the youth who used to pick grapes in the summer and wash dishes in restaurants, and girls who used to babysit for kids and earn their money that way and travel around. And I was lucky; I never ever had to work in anything else besides playing the guitar and singing for those 2.5 years. So I was very lucky in that way. And yes, of course, living that way and traveling that way really helped me to see and to experience the West in a totally different way from, let's say, going there and getting myself an office job as an architect and working from 9 to 5 every day, running the rat race. I would have seen and met people in a very different way. I wouldn't have met such a variety of people, first of all. Like when I was hitchhiking, the meeting of truck drivers, which I described in the book, uh, fellow travelers, all kinds of people in Paris, and the people who picked us up in hitchhiking, from truck drivers to the most famous commercial photographer in Paris, who used to photograph advertisements for Mercedes-Benz and Président Camembert, the cheese. All kinds of people. You come across all kinds of people, and that's an invaluable lesson in life.
I think we'll keep that valuable lesson in life slightly, because I don't want the readers to get to know what exactly is
Well,
there.
you're talking about the whole book, man, and then you keep saying you don't want the readers to know. No, but it's all right.
Honestly speaking,
I think it's all right to speak about some things in the book. I think it's all right.
Yes. Now also, Remo, there've been. Let's get to the naughty part of it. And when I say the book goes up and down, and that is what kept me going all throughout. Okay, it's just not that what I'm coming to, but you've been so open about all your relationships or flings that you had. Now, looking at reading that, okay, at some point of time, people would have, oh, this is what Remo was, okay. But when you were penning down your book, your autobiography, did you have anything in the back of your mind saying that, oh, is this going to lead people to believe the bad side of Remo?
Well, those who think that having relationships and having sex is bad, they will believe that is bad. But I don't believe so. And I wrote about it because I think it's a very, very, very important part of life and of learning about life. And I think it would be incomplete and insincere if I didn't write about that. And one thing I wanted my autobiography to be is honest and sincere, as much as I could, without hurting the feelings of others. So, for example, many of the girls I wrote about, I actually sent them the passage and asked them if they were comfortable and okay with that. Many of them I did that too before publishing. I do not mention their names, but still I sent them the passage, to ask for their permission and their approval. And so within those confinements of not hurting others, I wanted to be as honest as I could. And
Well,
like I said, if somebody wants to see it as bad, let them see it as bad. I think they're hypocrites if they see it as bad. Another reason is because they will read foreign books written by foreign artists, where there will be 100 times more sex and even almost pornographic sex, whereas mine is more about experiences of growing up and stuff like that, And there is no description. There's no there isn't much sexual description as such, but it's more about the feelings and the thoughts and the longings and of a youth as he's growing up. And if they want to see it as bad, It's either because they haven't had such experiences, in which case I pity them, or they have had and they see them as bad in others. In which case I pity them even more. I don't know.
But one thing I have to tell you,
Nobody has called it bad up till now. From the readers to the journalists to the people who have reviewed the book, nobody has called it bad.
well, I can vouch on that. No one. But one thing is, all of those people who you've interacted with are all happy mothers today, or
Yes,
grandmothers, right?
exactly.
Okay.
They
Now,
are
and by the way, you made a,
happy mothers today, exactly as you said.
and that's what it has to be. That's what it has to be. Okay. Uh,
Exactly.
on that note, I remember about the South Indian teacher that was teaching you maths. You made a mention about her. And
Oh yeah, yeah.
okay, were you able to establish contact once again with her?
No, absolutely not. No, no. With her, no, because that was somebody whom I know when I was a school boy, and we never had contact at that time. We had not even, we didn't even have her address back home at that time. And at that time, of course, there was no email, there was no telephone, hardly any telephones. But we didn't even exchange addresses. We didn't find it important to do so. She was just a paying guest who was staying next door who gave tuitions. That's it.
Yeah. But even those are like things that have happened in your life when you were young. You were just about 11 or 12 years old. But to remember all of that and put it down in your autobiography, Remo, do you have some either Pentium 3 or Pentium 4 in you?
What? No, I don't. In fact, I'm famous for not remembering things. But I don't know, things from our past, from our childhood, especially things that mark us. I guess we never forget them. And I kept remembering them as I kept writing. In fact, they just came alive. They just came alive because I was living the moment. I had gone back in those, I had gone back to those days, to those times, to that age, when I was writing. I was back in that state of mind. And and the important things that happened at that time all came back to mind, or most of them came back to mind. It just
Absolutely.
happens. It just happens. I think, Frankie, I think if you try writing about your past, I think you might experience the same thing. It's amazing how many memories are lodged back there in the back of our mind, which we don't think about every day. So we don't realize
Exactly.
that we remember them, but we do. We do. It's there
Exactly.
somewhere in the back of our mind.
Your first song that you wrote, Till I Died, your first composition at
Yeah.
14.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you you do something for the first time, okay, it's definitely going to be a sort of a memory. But if you look back into that particular track today, okay, what is the message that you would get in context of it today?
The message is exactly what I wrote and what you just said, that when you fall in love for the first time, you think it's forever. At that time, you don't think that it's going to be a passing phase or anything. At least, that's what happened to me. You never think of the end. It's after a couple of relationships have ended that I guess you realize or you accept the fact that, yeah, there can be an ending to this too. All things must pass, and a lot of uh, a lot of realization comes to your head. But the very first time is forever, man. You're only 14, but you think it's forever. It's
Exactly.
it's an
Exactly.
amazing feeling.
Now, also in your book, there is a sad moment in your
There are
life.
many sad moments. Yeah.
One of them would be the tragic loss of your band members. Now, is
Yes.
that something that still haunts you even today, um, Remo?
It is something that will never leave me. It is something that you just learn how to live with. You know,
Exactly.
you don't outgrow that thing. You don't forget that thing. It's just that in the beginning it is so difficult to live with it, and you wake up crying in the middle of the night. You wake up sweating, and you wake up with nightmares. Uh, but after some time, you learn how to live with it to a lesser degree. And I say to a lesser degree because that's not a tragedy; it's a very sad thing to happen when you lose
Yes.
your parents. But
Yeah.
it's more according to the natural laws, to the laws of nature, that you lose your aged parents at some time in life. So when that happens, for example, also it takes some time and then you learn how to live with it. And not that you've outgrown it and you've forgotten it. No, you can never forget your mother, you can never forget your father. But you learn how to accept that life is not eternal for any of us. And so with my band, it's the same thing. If I think about them many times, still I go like, why did that have to happen? And I still go. There are times, there are days when I still feel that, of course, like I said, but
That's what it is.
yeah.
Now, also in your book, you've made a very special reference to Mother Teresa. Of course, you've got the opera that you completed. Uh, if you look at that back today, okay, would you have thought like when Mother Teresa was alive, I would have wished I could have completed that opera?
I believe also that everything comes at the right time. You know, at that time, I had not even thought of writing a whole opera. I would have written those 3 or 4 songs which I mentioned, and that would be it. And they would have been recorded with the singers which I wasn't 100% happy with, in a recording studio which wasn't equipped for this kind of music and this kind of programming and orchestration. So in many ways, I'm happy that it happened now. And when I had the time to give it undivided attention for a whole year, for 2 years, in fact, of my life, once I restarted work on it, it was 2 years or more of my life, uh, non-stop. And at that time, I just didn't have the time. I was so busy. My career was at a very, very busy stage. We were flying from one concert to another concert, recordings and stuff like that. No, I think everything comes at the right time. And I think this opera came at the time when I was more mature, at the time when I had more time. Everything happens at the right time. And then I start to believe in those kind of uh,
Exactly.
sayings as well. Things come at the right time. Don't rush them.
In the same chapter where you make a mention about Mother Teresa, you also mentioned the softer side of Remo Fernandes. He may be performing at the best gigs around the country or around the globe. Okay. But then you also make a mention about how much time Remo gives to people who are less fortunate. Like in the same chapter, you made a mention about asking the organizers to give you an opportunity to be with those residents at Mother Teresa's house, isn't it?
Not just Mother Teresa, this happened at shows where, which were charitable shows. Uh, when I was invited to perform for the Cancer Society, let's say, or the Leprosy Society, or for orphans, to raise funds for the home for the orphans, I would always say, okay, I will perform, I will reduce my rates, I will do this, I will do that, but I also want to stay an extra day, whether the show is in Delhi, Bangalore, Calcutta, Bombay, wherever. You put me up for an extra day, and on the next day of the show, I want to go to the orphans' home and sing for the orphans. Not only in the five-star hotel, in the big banquet room where all the rich folks of the city are going to come and spend their money and raise funds. But I also want to sing for the orphans themselves, for the tuberculosis patients themselves, for the cancer patients themselves, for the, you know, because I really felt that that's what they were lacking. Funds,
Exactly.
sometimes the cold funds are, of course, extremely necessary and indispensable for this work. But they don't fill up your heart and your soul. You just go there with the guitar and sing for them and make them sing and make them dance. And you may think you're doing it for just that 1 hour, Did you make them forget their cancer or their tuberculosis or their whatever? But it lasts with them in their minds and in their hearts and in their conversations for days and days and days. Little little episodes like that. And
No,
that's what
I asked you this question particularly Remo because everyone knows Remo as the rock star, okay, but not many people really know the softer side of you, and you made it a mention over here, uh, how important it is to have that one-on-one connection with those who are actually suffering, be it in cancer or be it leprosy or whatever. That that leaves an immense impression on the hearts of those who are actually going through it. Okay, and hats off to you for all your effort. Okay, a rock star, Remo Fernandes, coming and meeting up with them. God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. But really, it was something which, as you know, I didn't go there with reporters and photographers the way our socialites and our politicians do and make a big hullabaloo about it. Nobody knew about it. Now, years and years later, I wrote about it in this book because it was it was a very important part of my life, something that I felt very strongly about. And yeah, I know that these kind of things, like I said, touch those patients much more than a cold check which arrives on the next day from the fundraiser concert which I performed at the previous day. And the check is extremely important. I'm not putting the check down. Extremely important. But this is, I think, as important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, also, Remo, another important part that I needed to ask you, which you also made a mention in your book about the number of musicians that you've performed over the years. Bashir Sheikh, for example, you've also brought in that element of Bondo, your encounter with him when you first started singing at the Taj, that $150, 150 rupees encounter. Okay. Now, I firmly believe that anyone who's shared a stage with Remo has turned out to be an equally a bigger star. Don't you think so?
I don't know about that. I've not kept track of that, but I don't think so really, no. But I've enjoyed playing with whoever I've played most of the time. Most of the people I've played with, but it has turned out that I really turned out to be a solo musician finally in all my recordings, in all my creations. There are people who love to create in group, you know, and they find a musician to compose with, and they complement each other. Whether it's Lennon and McCartney, there are there are world famous associations in history all the time. But I've never been able to do that. There are also solo, there are perhaps more, solo creators than creators who create in duos or in groups. And I'm one of the solo ones. And now, thanks to this technology, I've not only I've not only composed my songs and written my lyrics alone, but I've been able to record them alone as well, playing all the instruments alone, singing all the harmonies alone, and arranging them according to the orchestrations and the arrangements which I hear in my head. And my songs might have taken a different turn if I had a real partner in creating them. But no, I was and I am still a solo a solo creator. It's just different people, different composers are made up of different in different ways. And I'm a solo creator. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. And that's where Remo is as a solo artist, as a rock star. He's created a niche for himself. Okay. And I've been following you. I think maybe the early 90s. Since then, I've been following you up, and I haven't come across anyone across be it in India, uh, or even to the rest of the world, who brings in that much of vibrancy on stage, be it your communication skills with your audience, and I feel that it's only Remo who can actually deliver that. Don't you think so?
Well, that's what I was always told, and uh, I know that at one time it was absolutely true. In India, for example, nobody ever moved. Forget about talking to the audience uh, on stage. I myself was a performer who just went on stage with my guitar very quietly, sat down on a chair with my acoustic guitar, adjusted the two mics, and sang. Announced maybe I announced the name of the song, but that was it. And I sang my compositions, and I walked off. Uh, that's what I did until I went to Paris, and I spent those 2.5 years, busking in the streets, in the metro corridors, in restaurants. Uh, Doing the hitchhiking in the summers and singing and attracting people's attention. Like I wrote in the book, many foreigners have written that they found themselves in India. I didn't go to find myself in Europe in any spiritual way or in any intellectual way, but I discovered that part of myself over there, that I had this showmanship in me, and I was surprised. I surprised myself when I came back to India and I started to be that way on stage. And people saw me that way, and they just thought that that I had always been that way, but I hadn't always been that way. I'd always been this very shy, very introverted performer, and something in me changed, and I became this very extrovert uh, performer on stage after that. And
I know, Remo, that you've
very
made
spontaneous. It was like on the spot, nothing was worked out. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that on
yeah.
stage. It greatly depended on the audience, and there was an excitement which I felt for my music, for my performing, for my performance, which used to transmit itself to the audience, and then the audience used to give me back that excitement because they felt excited, and it was a give and take and give and take, and we took each other higher and higher, right until the end of my performance, and it was a great experience. It was a high. It was a high. That's
I,
why
I
I'm blessed that I enjoy both. The lone, creativity in the studio when I'm alone, and then going out there in front of thousands and performing it and communicating that same song to the audience. They are two totally different trips, and I'm really lucky that I love and enjoy them both.
Absolutely, Remo. I know you made a brief mention about how another artist on stage was booed. I think it was during those Bombay Dying shows that you did. Okay, there's so much that we could actually discuss about your book, but if we continue to discuss, Remo, I think people are not going to buy your autobiography. So I'm going to insist that everyone out there watching this interview, make sure that you buy a copy of it. There's no excuse, be it a hard copy if you're in India or if you're overseas, get a Kindle like the way I have done it, okay, and understand what the rock star Remo Fernandes means to every one of us. Remo, thank you very much for your time. I know you are a busy person, especially when you are in Goa or even if you are in Porto, but thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that.
The pleasure is all mine, Frankie. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you. And thank you, Prudent Media.